friends, welcome. Today we are going to be talking about freezer meal logistics. If you're new here, I'm Kristy, and this is our little homestead, and one of the things we love to do is make freezer meals. And in our last freezer meal video, a lot of you asked for me to show you kind of the process leading up to freezer meals, how I plan, how I organize and get ready for those massive freezer meal days. So here is that video just for you. I'm gonna be walking through step by step how I organize, plan, and implement our freezer meal process to make it as quick and as painless as possible. The first thing we always do when we're working with freezer meals is decide what we need, because it doesn't do any good to stock your freezer with all sorts of stuff if you can't even get to the bottom of it ever. So we want to make sure we're only filling the freezer with things we need that we'll use, and we don't want to put unnecessary things in the freezer. Freezer space is precious. So right now we have finished last month this huge soup freezer meal fiesta, and we did that and it was wonderful. But about half of those soups are still in the freezer, which means dinners we are good for. So what we need actually to restock is our breakfast. So this coming freezer meal that we're going to post in a couple days is going to be all breakfasts. Now you can just completely make up your freezer meals. I love to get mine on Pinterest. Not only do they have a really good selection and variety, but then I can pin the recipes and post the links for y'all to have access to. I don't like making things that I can't share recipes with you so that you know how to make them. So that's part of why I use Pinterest, but it also has so many great tips and tricks, and you can find a freezer meal recipe for just about anything. And if you can't find the freezer meal recipe for it, you probably can just find a regular recipe for it and adapt it. A lot of things will freeze really well. So that's really the first big step, is figuring out what you need and looking for recipes to fulfill that. Now for us, I said we're gonna make breakfast. So we wanna make breakfast for a month. And there's 4 of us, which is 120 meals if we do it for every day of the month. Usually we'll do it and plan for a month, and then we kind of have some overage because every day we don't pull out one of these freezer meals, but it really helps, and they last for 3 to 4 months, so it's perfect. So we're gonna plan for 30 days worth of freezer meals for our family. And this works out really well for breakfast, especially because a lot of the breakfasts we found go into like muffin tins, or it'll go into a 9x13 pan and get cut into 12 squares. So most of the recipes we found make 12 or 24 or something. So we are gonna make 10 recipes. 10 times 12, that's 120, and that gets us to our 30. And that's how I figure that out. You do not have to have some magical mathematical formula. Just make what you need. I just like nice even numbers. And you will see as I show you my plans, I'm really super type A, so I like all my things, all my ducks in a row and organized. Can you not be organized and just fly by the seat of your pants and do freezer meals? Absolutely. I just love to really truncate my time and make the best use of my time, and really putting this planning in at the beginning really helps that. So once I do that, this is my catch-all book, y'all. This is, I know, my husband makes fun of me because I write everything down. He's a computer guy. He uses all the spreadsheets and all the formulas, and I love a good spreadsheet, but I also love to handwrite things. It helps me remember, it helps me organize, it helps me process. This is my book of like everything in the world, so I stick everything in here. The first thing I do once I have my recipes picked out is I'm going to actually print them out. Now, you don't have to do this part if you just want to pull them up on your phone, but this helps me organize them. And also another added benefit is when we're done with our freezer meals, I stick them in a binder. And then as we go and as we eat them, we make notes on them. Like, this was good, but I would rather have bananas than strawberries on this. Or this was good, but maybe cook the noodles less. Or, you know, things like this. Or this was disgusting, nobody loves it, rip it out of the thing. And, or maybe, you know, Daddy likes this, but the girls don't, so eat this when the girls are away. And it helps us refine our freezer meal process. It helps us make things better, because a lot of times in these videos, we'll make tried and true favorites, but we'll also try new things. So this helps us really know what we like, and it helps us tweak these as we go. So I really like having a print copy because we can make those notes as we go, and everybody has access to those print copies and can be like, if Taylor pulls out a soup for lunch and she's like, this wasn't my favorite, or I would like this if it had more salt, or whatever she wants to add to it, she can. But that's part of why I like having print copies, but it also makes the organization so much easier. Once I have these organized and I know what we're cooking and I know how much we're cooking, then I take to my pen and paper and make a list. Now this part is probably the most tedious part. I open my notebook and I'm gonna list all of the ingredients. And like I said, this can be a little tedious, but all of these little tedious tasks save you a ton of time in the long run. So I'll write the first thing was rolled oats, and I'm gonna put my measurement, because some things will be in different measurements. And so a cup, and I'm gonna put this one took 1 cup or 2 cups, and I have tally marks, right? Eggs, the number of single eggs here. And as I go through all of my recipes, I'm gonna add to the tally. And eventually I have a complete list of everything I need. That just makes it super simple. So I can go now and go to my pantry and start checking things off my list. And if I see I need 3 cups of rolled oats, but in my pantry I only have 2 cups, I need to order some more rolled oats. If I see I need pumpkin spice seasoning and I don't have that, then obviously I'm gonna need to order pumpkin spice seasoning, right? This also lets me know how to be efficient. And another thing that I didn't mention, when I'm choosing freezer meals, it's not such a big thing with breakfast freezer meals because really eggs, bacon, sausage. But if you're making dinner freezer meals, a lot of times the first thing I will do is go to my freezer and see what I have, and then I will make meals based on that, especially the protein. So for instance, if I know we've got 20 pounds of deer that we need to use up, which is very frequent in our house, I'll go look for ground beef recipes and just make sure that we're using those recipes. So that's another way that you can decide what you're gonna cook, is what you have. Because typically what we'll do is we'll buy meat in bulk on sale, or we have the meat that we've harvested from hunting or whatever, and we wanna make sure that we're using that in our freezer and it's not going bad. Otherwise, if you're not using it, there's no point in storing these foods back. So this is very practical. You want to make sure you're using those meats that are scrounging the bottom of your freezer. So once I have this beautiful checklist that's going to take you a good while, I'm going to take this and I'm going to match it up with my pantry. I'm going to figure out what I need, what I don't need. Then I can just get from the grocery store only what I need. And this is going to be super helpful. It's cost effective because you're using things from the back of your pantry and you're making sure that you're not buying extra, but also you're making sure you have everything you need, because the last thing you want to do in the middle of a big freezer meal baking session is head to the grocery store. And I don't know about you, but we live out in the country. It is not just a hop, skip, and jump to the grocery store. So it's gonna make your time really a lot more efficient. So once I have this list and I bought all my ingredients, the next thing is to figure out my timetable and what I need to do that day. Here we go to the next page in my lovely notebook. I'm gonna have a 2 cook list and a 2 chop list. Now for breakfast freezer meals, the chop list is short, but a lot of times when we do huge dinner freezer meals, you're gonna have a lot to chop. So that list is hugely long. And so if anytime you can combine like all the onions at once or all the peppers at once, it's great. And then I know I need a certain amount of bacon and a certain amount of sausage, and I'm gonna make sure all that gets cooked at once. Anytime you can combine these, that's the best case scenario. So you just go through each recipe and you see, okay, what proteins does this have that need cooked? What veggies or fruits need chopped? And check, I've done that one. Okay, what proteins, what fruits or veggies, check. And you can already see how having lists here help. And so I know right at the outset, the first thing I'm gonna do when I start my freezer meal marathon is I'm gonna cook the meats that need cooked, and I'm gonna chop the veggies, the fruits that need chopped. Unless it's something like this, I know the pecans are only in one recipe and the apples are only in one recipe, so probably I'm gonna chop those as we get to that recipe instead of doing it ahead of time. But if I had like 7 recipes that called for apples, then I would chop them all at once. One thing, one time, be done. This is where Google is your friend. So if one recipe calls for 1/4 cup of chopped onions and another recipe calls for 2 chopped onions and another recipe calls for 1 chopped onion or a cup of chopped onion. So I know, because I've done freezer meals long enough, that 1 cup of chopped onion equals 1 medium onion usually. But you can just Google. If you have this huge, you've chopped all these onions and you want to know, okay, now it says 1 onion, how much do I put in the recipe? You just Google, how many onions make 1 cup of onions? So it's super simple. And sometimes you got to do a little conversion back and forth. When I do that conversion is now. And then I will write down, okay, I don't have any of those here because it's not a dinner freezer meal, but I would write down on this recipe, if it says one onion, I would write down 1 cup out to the side. That way I know, I don't have to think, there's no stopping in the middle of it. Once you go, you're going. And so cooking those proteins, chopping all at once, it saves so much time. Now, the next thing I want to do is figure out a logical progression for what you're doing. This is going to depend on a lot of things. Your oven space is number 1. Some people have huge double ovens. I do not. I have an oven. It has 2 shelves. I can fit 2 things on it. Makes it easy to figure out though. I also have a limited number of baking pans, okay? Today, we're going to be doing a lot of things that have to go into muffin tins. Well, I only have 2 muffin tins, and that's okay. I don't need 74 muffin tins, but I do have to plan around the only having 2 muffin tins. So I need to do some figuring. So, and the other thing I want to make sure is I'm using my oven space as efficiently as possible. So if I have 2 slots on my oven, I want them filled as often as I can, okay? Because that's going to, if I'm waiting one at a time for these things to come out, and they're 30 minutes to an hour each, right? And I'm sticking one in, and then I'm waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting until it comes out. It's going to basically double my time. But if I can pair up the different things that cook at the same temperature, I can put those in the oven at the same time. And so that's the next thing I do is I take my recipes and I mark the temperature on here. And really big, it helps me see it. It makes it just really easy knowing what to set the oven on at a glance. But it also helps me figure out, okay, I'm gonna be putting this in the oven first, but it can also go with this, and I will start to pair up my recipes. Or alternatively, I doubled this one so I can be using both of the notches on my oven at the same time and be maximizing that space. But that's really important, maximizing your space, minimizing your time. And then from there, I make kind of a logical progression. I'll match the things up that need to go in the oven together, and then I kind of set out a logical progression of what needs to happen. I want to make sure while something's cooking in the oven that I'm mixing the next thing that's going to go in the oven, right? I always want to have that rotation going, especially if it's a full oven day like this. So as you can see, right at the very tippy top, I have set the oven to 350. And then we're gonna start with baking the meat. And while I'm making the meat, Michaela's gonna start on the French toast casserole cups and all the things that we go. And a lot of these are paired up. And I have make, and then bake. And make, and then bake, right? Mix, bake. Right? And then at the bottom, I have these kind of floating tasks. And these are things that don't necessarily have to go in the oven. They don't have to take oven time, and we can stick them in whenever we have some downtime. Some of these are going to take 15 minutes and some of them are going to take an hour. And so we're going to have some time where we're sitting. And so the first chance we get where we have time, we stick in one of these things. That really helps us truncate our time, always making sure we've got the next thing ready to go, always making sure in the downtime we've done as much as we can to prepare and get everything else ready. And for us, we love making these meals as a family. The girls, I consider this part of their home ec. They're homeschooled. So I consider this absolutely part of their home ec. And we divide these recipes up. A lot of times Lance will come help us, but this is going to be a shorter one. I think we can finish in about 3.5 to 4 hours, hopefully. So that means maybe we can finish before he's home tonight. So he's not going to be a part of this one. If we do it on the weekends or in the evenings, a lot of times he loves to help. But we're going to try to have this one done before Daddy gets home. So you won't see his face when we post this freezer meal, but usually he's involved. So then what we'll do is I'll say, okay, I've got 10 recipes. There's 3 of us. So everybody gets 3 recipes and somebody gets 4. And usually mommy takes one for the team and gets 4, unless there's just one that they're really excited about. And they get to pick. I let them choose what they want to cook. And that's another thing. When we're picking the recipes, I let them help pick, because I want these to be things they're excited about eating as well as things that I'm excited about them having. And it really helps when they help with it and they help pick it. It helps them be excited about eating maybe some healthier things. So I have on here MJ, K and T, Michaela Jade, we call her MJ, Taylor, Kristy, we've got it. So we mark exactly who's doing what tasks, so there's no confusion. And I know you type B people that are watching are like, what? This is crazy. Like, we just want to cook. You just go for it. You do you. You can do freezer meals however you want. I am not saying this is the only way to do freezer meals. Please do not hear me wrong. My little type A soul loves to put things in order and things. And it really does save us time. And the whole reason we do freezer meals in the first place is to save time. So we have more time together as a family, and we're spending less time cooking, cleaning, right? So this really helps us. And so if we're really in it to save time, then I like to do it this way and really organize and try to find the logical ways to kind of Tetris these things together. It's almost a challenge to see how you can fit these things together to really maximize that time saving. And that's pretty much it. That is my how-to, that's my prep work. If you have any questions about how we do or why we do, please put them in the comments below and I will be happy to answer them at any point. This is, like I said, the freezer meals is not for everybody, and freezer meals this way is not for everybody, but we love it and it's really been a blessing to our family. And all of y'all that watch us, I just want to say y'all have really been a blessing to our family, just more than you will ever know. Your kind words and your encouragement to my daughters and to us are just incredibly sweet, and we love you. And know that even if we can't respond to each and every one, we do read those and we read them to our girls, and it's just so incredibly special, and we are thankful for you. So I think this is coming out on a Wednesday, and then on Saturday we will be posting our full breakfast freezer meals, so you can be watching for that. We've got all sorts of fun stuff coming up for the holidays. We've got 12 days of homemade Christmas, and it's going to be a collab with several other channels where we're, for the first 12 days of December, going to be making homemade Christmas gifts, which will be super fun, and our usual homesteading, gardening, cooking, preserving content. So if you are new here, we would love for you to join us and subscribe. If you got some value out of this, hit that like button. Thank you so much for joining us.